Um, Hi internet. English. Yes, I'm doing an English video, so I should greet everybody in English. I'm going to do a quick response. I really should not be awake, but ultimately, people matter, and they are worth the occasional sleep-deprived day. So I wanted to really quick make a response. Spent about the last hour typing out notes, processing, calming down. We'll get to that first. Did look at I did look at War on Errors response video. I don't have a lot to say off of the first bit, uh, mostly because of logic and rhetoric. I typed this out because I wanted to be sure that I would get it word for word. I was starting at about 248, 250 or so. Which really this caught me by surprise, but we'll get there. All right. The quote, and sure, if Jews really are inferior, then why not the Holocaust? And if black people really are worth 3/5 of a white person, why not slavery? So if all of humanity is really evil, why not set them all on fire for all eternity? It would just be wrong not to. The claim is given may be logically valid, but is it sound? Are Jews or black people inferior to white people? Is humanity evil? Now, this is really, it's not even logic, but it's a rhetorical device. And the idea with a rhetorical device, this rhetorical device, is you're going to present two really emotionally, immediately reactive comments. There's a visceral gut anger involved with these. And then you throw in your opponent's actual position, and really quickly afterwards. And the way this works rhetorically is you hope that the emotional point carried from the 2 points you said, then that your audience will not be able to quickly emotionally disengage when you throw in the third point, which in this case is only the third point is something I've said. Let's break this down. If Jews really are inferior, why not the Holocaust? And I've said that nowhere. I haven't advocated it. I don't remember the last time Ben and I ever spoke about the Holocaust. I'm pretty sure he doesn't know what my thoughts are on Nazi war crimes at all. So this we're starting off with what's called a straw man argument. A straw man argument, it can be a straw man argument, it can be something else. A straw man argument, really quick, is to throw out something that is not your opponent's position, right? My opponent's position on it. This is what Brian, so Brian, what about the fact that you like to murder puppies? Are you still murdering puppies? Murder pup, or to use the example kind of in the same context, eating puppy intestines is repulsive. Stabbing cows with swords is aberrant. Don't vote for Brian. Okay, now the rules of interpretation of language is context, context, context. By the way that the language works, if you throw these apparently, now that doesn't require Brian to have skewered cows or eviscerated puppies, but if I say those two things, I'm hoping, or I'm setting my audience up to associate my political opponent Brian with cow puncturing and puppy evisceration. At the very least, I'm hoping to have the emotional association, and if my audience is particularly stupid, then they're actually going to assume from that inference, particularly if, say, I've done an hour-long video and the opening two of the opening things are positions I've never said, positions I've never held, and positions that anger me. I had to calm down before I could start rationally processing what was going to be said afterwards, which is the point. We're going to get to that really quick. And to be honest, if I were dealing with somebody that I didn't know, somebody who was a stranger, and they came up and this was their opening rhetorical presentation. I would have changed the channel. If it was in person, I'd be walking away. Um, I I don't believe this approach is intellectually responsible. I think it's manipulative. I think it's low. Um, I would love to be shown where I have done that to somebody if I have, so that I can publicly apologize for it. Um, but frankly, it just pisses me off. I kind of expected in presidential politics, and if some random internet troll had shown up and done this, and started off with that, I'd just be like, read my channel trailer. My number one rule is respect is given and earned. If you're not going to be respectful I'm going to treat people with respect. And then if I'm going to follow the example of Jesus. If people came up to Jesus honestly and genuinely seeking and questioning, then he, the record, whether you think Jesus is a fictional character, whether you think not, Jesus responded accordingly with compassion and a great deal of patience usually. And when people came to come up and get in his face and to like knock his hat off and to pick a fight, he basically cut them off at the knees. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to call names. Like I said, I took time to calm down. And because this is an apologetics channel, I wanted to break down this argument really quick. It's looking like that's going to be my first video. Again, I have to calm down again. All right, so now this is simultaneously a straw man, an appeal to emotion, and an argumentum ad Nazium, which is really efficient amounts of rhetorical dishonesty or logical fallacies. Going to go to that great reel of wisdom and unpack when you hear argumentum ad Hitlerum. Nowadays you'll hear it called an ad Nazium, which is a play on ad nauseum. So here's from Wiki. The suggested rationale is one of guilt by association. Its name is variation on the term reductio ad absurdum. Reductio ad Hitlerum is sometimes called playing the Nazi card, according to its critics and proponents. It's a tactic often used to derail arguments because such comparisons tend to distract and anger the opponent. That's from Gary Curtis's Logical Fallacy, the Hitler Card, in Fallacy Files, published 2007. Okay, so if somebody hadn't watched my videos or hadn't gone through, and I thought I was trying to be very kind and to point out every place that I agreed and to be very responsible with Ben's positions, and then they just watched Ben's video, so if they didn't do all of the homework, they would immediately be associating me with being so basically what's going on rhetorically is, for those people who read in comprehension, for people who link things together, I was just called a racist and I was just called a Nazi, and then I was expected to go forward like everything's buddy buddy and cool. Now I'm not my family. I'm not, before I got into, before the internet really became a thing in terms of broad spectrum stuff, also like the 2000s. Before then, when it was just instant messenger, where it's both mostly people dealing one-on-one. If you didn't go to bulletin boards, you didn't run into this. And I never really ran into it at home because my family, particularly my uncles and my aunts and my older family, if somebody tried something like this, they'd mostly just get punched in the face. That's just the side of the tracks that my family came from, and so I didn't run into it. Like where I went to high school, you just get maybe beat up or shot. So you didn't run into this a whole lot unless somebody was they wanted to get in a fight with you. So I wanted to take some time. It's a good rhetorical ploy if you believe your audience is going to make the association. Ben has good reason from comments in my to know that his audience hasn't watched his audience hasn't watched my videos, probably isn't going to watch my video, they're not going to know what my positions are. So it's going to work for his audience. And again, it's a good emotional ploy if your assumption about your audience, they aren't going to know that this is not the content being put forward, and they aren't going to realize that it's an emotional manipulation, it's going to work. Where it can backfire is if you're running into like a regular debater, because you start throwing out the Nazi card in actual, like debating circles. It's been so overdone. I mean, the argumentum ad Hitlerum was first coined in 1951. It's not new. It plays really well if your crowd is, to your own audience. It's a good playing to the choir motif. It doesn't work really well across political or philosophical or even scientific lines, because once you start throwing out, unless you're actually like talking history, like we're going to discuss the legal permutations of the transformation from the Weimar Republic to the Third Reich. Now that conversation can happen, and you're not committing an argument ad Nazium. But by and large, in public discussion circles, when you make this play, if you can't pull your audience in right away, you lose a lot of credibility, because people who either have done the homework, where they've gone back and they've discovered, shockingly enough, that what you're leaving out from your opening statements, that I'm not a KKK member, weird, and that I'm not a member of the Aryan Brotherhood, and yet I'm still, and I'm a Christian, which I can make a really good case that those people are not whatever they claim. I can show you from the internal standards of the faith that they don't make it. But now let's go back to Wikipedia. According to its critics and proponents, it is a tactic often used to derail arguments because such comparisons tend to distract and anger the opponent. Now, I'm 12 minutes into this video that I was going to do to respond to Ben's points, but because we opened up with a fallacy trifecta, appeal to emotion as opposed to an appeal to reason, a star man argument, and an argumentum ad Nazium, which is a false guilt by association. Now, I said at the beginning of my review, Ben's somebody I've known for a long time. He's somebody that I care deeply about. He's somebody that, even though I'm not really happy right now about the approach being taken, still enjoys and deserves respect and civility from me. So I'm probably going to call this my opening video, and then I'm going to deal with the rest. I'm still, if you can hear me, the idea that somebody I consider a friend would take this track in argument. I'm either insulted that it's expected to be taken seriously, or offended that somebody thinks I'm so much of a pushover that you're going to do this with me, and then you can use this kind of a rhetorical tactic and then pretend to be civil later on, like you didn't start off kicking somebody with the nuts, and now you're going to fight fair in a boxing ring. So like I said, if this wasn't somebody that I knew and cared about personally, I'd be done, and I wouldn't have gotten past that. Started minute 2 for 48 through 3:11. So this are 3 rhetorical things to look out for. I'm going to throw one more in and just make this video an example video of, if you're into Christian apologetics, things to, or if you're into debate in general, tactics to look out for. Don't step on this landmine. It's a landmine. It's not an actual argument, and it isn't processing your ideas. It's trying to score brownie points at people who already agree with you. And that's one of the differences between a rhetorical attack and interacting with ideas. Some of the interacting with ideas does actually come like in the last third of the video, and that's worth digging into. So I will get there eventually. The other one is what I call, some people might refer to it as shock and effect. I call it the dance of 5,000 questions. And basically, what this is it's a real quick, snarky, and I really only encounter it from atheists. Um, but it goes like to do it from the other side. The tactic is to pack 20 questions in 20 seconds. To, and obviously, questions can only be responded to and really processed one at a time. But as soon as the first or the second question comes, rather than dealing with the response, this gives you a rhetorical out. Because instead of dealing with the point of engagement, the point of contact that's going on, you can sidetrack. So if your debating opponent is actually making a good defense or a solid presentation, then you can say, rather than deal with a solid presentation or a good defense, you can go back to one of the other 19 questions you asked that they haven't had time to respond to yet and say, see, you're just ignoring my point about why. You know, and the tone isn't quite that much, but there is a section in the middle of the video that really is this, and what you can tell when you're discussing, when you're debating somebody, and you hear the dance of 5,000 questions, it's safe to take a step back, because somebody who's throwing that out, they're not really looking for an answer, right? They're pretty sure that they're making their point, and they're not asking for a response. They're assuming your inability to deal with any of the question, so there's no reason to break or pause or expand on them. You can just go to the next one that you're to be assumed to be unable to respond. This is very similar to the opening tactic, because it again plays on the assumption with your audience or to the audience. It's an emotional reward, right? When you do this, it's an emotional reward, because if you're the one throwing the five, if you're the one doing the dance of 5,000 questions, it feels very rewarding because you get this momentum going, and you can just imagine their inability to respond coherently. You're visualizing your point sinking home and going, yeah, I got him. I really got him. I really got him. And take this and take this. Okay, and that's fine if that's your goal. If your goal, though, is to discuss points, if it is to engage in ideas, as opposed to, like a full contact spar, as opposed to a boxer who gets this guy in the corner, he's going to punch till he falls over. Well, okay, well, then you're attacking and you're not discussing. It's a sign that the person isn't going to engage where you're at. They're going to just throw attacks and attacks from where they are. And one of the reasons why I took an hour to respond to a 10-minute video is because I very much don't like to be that guy, and I very much don't like to function on that way. One, I don't like to. I like to assume the intelligence. Until proven otherwise, I like to assume the intelligence and dignity of the other person when I'm discussing ideas, and I can't throw that tactic out without assuming an intellectual incapacity or rhetorical incapacity on the other person's part, so that and if there's a discerning audience, if there's an audience who's been around the debate game, who's engaged in the realm of culture clash and ideas, I also assume they're going to hear what I'm doing, and they're going to know, once again, I'm attacking for points rather than engaging in a dialectic. I've always found dialectics to be much more fruitful. And what's really ironic is, the last 5 minutes, last 3 or 4 minutes of the video are actually a pretty good dialectic. And so I do plan on engaging those. But I'm still too angry right now to do it really well. So I'm going to wait a little bit. Peace.